Good evening, everybody. Welcome to December 9th meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. My name is Jamin Kara, ZBA Chair. To my right is Vice Chair Josh Neely. To his right is member JP Boucher. And then across the stage, member Steve Lionel and alternate Joseph Patry. Because we only have 4 regular members this evening, Mr. Patry will be participating in voting on all the cases, of course, unless he needs to recuse himself for any reason. So tonight we have applications for both variances and special exceptions. A special exception is a use that's allowed under the zoning ordinance so long as certain conditions are met. A variance is a request to deviate from the conditions of the ordinance or the requirements of the ordinance. And for the board to grant a variance, we have to find that 5 criteria are met. We have to find that granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest, that it would be consistent with the spirit of the ordinance, that by granting the variance, substantial justice would be done to the owner seeking it, and that there be no diminution of surrounding property values, and that owing to a special condition of the property, denying the variance would result in an undue hardship to the applicant seeking it. So in terms of the order of the business, I will read the case into the record, and then the applicant is requested to come forward up to the podium. You'll be asked to state your name and address, and then you have up to 15 minutes to present your case to the board. You don't have to use the 15 minutes, but you do have the option. And then following that, I'll ask if there's anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the application. And each person will also come forward to the microphone and state his or her name and address. And I will have up to 5 minutes to address the board. Again, you don't have to use 5 minutes, but you have the option. And then following that, I'll ask if there's anybody in the audience who has any questions, concerns, or opposition. And again, each person will have the opportunity to come up to the microphone. We'll have 5 minutes to address the board. Then following that, the applicant will have the opportunity to come forward and we'll have up to 5 minutes to provide any rebuttal. And then following that, we would allow one person who spoke in opposition with questions, concerns to the application to come forward and have the last say. And again, that would be for up to 5 minutes. That is only one person. So if there are a few people who wish to comment at that point, we'll give you the opportunity to deliberate amongst yourselves. So hopefully that is clear, but we'll provide reminders as we go along the way. And I should have noted that to my left is Deputy Planning Manager Carter Falk. Mr. Falk, are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
No, there are not.
Right, so given that, then I will call the roll. Mr. Neely.
Present.
Mr. Boucher.
Present.
Mr. Lionel.
Present.
Mr. Patry.
Present.
And I, Jamin Kara, am present as well. So I'm going to read the first case into the record. The application of the City of Nashua, Division of Public Works, at 848 West Hollis Street, requesting a special exception from the Land Use Code Section 190-112 to impact 2 other wetland areas, man-made drainage swales, totaling approximately 3,992 square feet, to facilitate the construction of the proposed Department of Public Works garage and maintenance facility project. That's in the R9 and R30/GMZ zones in Ward 5. It looks like Attorney Perlman is here for the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. I am Andy Perlman, attorney with Pruney and Perlman here in Nashua, here on behalf of the city's Department of Public Works to do our presentation. Along with me, Ethan Beals will be presenting as well. But, Mr. Chairman, if the board will indulge me, there are a few aldermen I would like to call up as testimony in support because they have a meeting at 7 o'clock downstairs, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm Alderman Patricia Klee, and I live at 9 Maywood Drive here in Nashua. I'm here to speak on behalf of it. Ordinarily, I'm not one of these people that believe in harming any kind of wetlands in any way, shape, or form. But after having looked into this, spoken to a number of people, the Conservation Commission has kind of given its blessing, and I feel that that is the body that we use in the city to kind of keep us on the straight and narrow. In addition, I'd asked questions about whether or not there were creatures there that could only survive there. Are they very unique to it? Are they endangered or so on? And I was reassured that that was not the case. It's also I believe, a springtime wetland, so it's not throughout the summer and so on. So it's just, I guess would be considered towards the breeding period of these creatures that kind of tend to live there. So, I hope that you will give it a favorable view and vote and so on, because as I feel that we need the building, we need this to continue on course and so on, and without this approval, we're kind of stopped. So you have to weigh it, but I do think it would be beneficial on all, and I don't think it's that harmful to the wetlands. There are other wetlands within that area further down. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm just going to apparently take the mic. I'm Alicia Gregg, Alderman at Large for the city, and I'm also the state representative for Ward 7. I live at 4 Eastbrook Drive. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in support of the wetland special exception for the DPW garage project. I'm here tonight to express my strong support for this project, and I want to share why this is so critical for our city. This maintenance garage represents phase 2 of our DPW facilities project. We successfully completed phase 1, the new administrative building on West Hollis Street, which opened in the spring of '23. Now we need to finish what we started by building the garage and fleet service bays that our DPW desperately needs. In my first week as Alderman at Large, I made it a priority to tour our city departments and facilities. When I visited the current DPW garage at Streets Department, I was frankly alarmed by what I saw. The conditions are sorely outdated, to the point where I have serious concerns about potential health impacts on our DPW workers who report there every day. These are the people who keep our city running, who plow our roads in snowstorms, who manage tens of millions of dollars in annual paving projects, and who maintain our infrastructure. They deserve a safe, adequate workspace. Beyond the health and safety concerns, the current facility simply cannot accommodate our equipment needs. Our DPW manages multiple departments and with a fleet that has grown substantially. We're trying to operate a modern municipal service with equipment that can no longer fit in facilities designed for a much smaller operation. And here's the critical problem. The current location has no ability to expand. We cannot build what we need where we are. The new facility is not just preferable, it's necessary. The Conservation Commission has reviewed this application thoroughly and provided a favorable recommendation. Their expertise in wetlands protection gives me confidence that we can build the consolidated garage and fleet service facility our DPW desperately needs while being responsible environmental stewards. The Board of Public Works just approved this plan last night, recognizing the urgency of moving forward. It isn't just about approving a special exception. This is about ensuring our city can continue to provide essential services safely and effectively. Our DPW workers and residents deserve better than what we currently have, and we have to complete this critical Phase 2 project. I strongly encourage the board to grant this special exception, and I thank you for all of your work.
Hi, Alderman Rick Dowd, Alderman Ward 2, and it's very hard to follow that. I think Alderman Gregg covered most of this. As a former chairman of this committee, the Zoning Board, I recognize that this is a very important project for the city of Nashua. It has the capability of increasing our work capability for the DPW and also saving us hundreds of thousands of dollars in equipment that we have. We have millions of dollars worth of equipment, and keeping it exposed outside to the heat and cold does not do us any good as far as our surf requirements. We can keep equipment longer, and that's critically important, because this will allow us to have a wash bay that can not only do DPW equipment, but other divisions' equipments as well. So there's a potential for saving hundreds of thousands of dollars for the city, and that's critically important. So I ask for your favorable consideration in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Alderman at Large Michael O'Brien, 4 Whitfield Street, Nashua, New Hampshire. And I'm also the chairman of the Committee of Infrastructure. I arise today to support this project and hope that you'll give us a favorable recommendation. This will go a very long way to making city services efficient. If you look, the administration building is there. Why not put the Public Works Mechanical Division there too? It's easy, they'll walk across a short parking lot and able to make executive decisions on the vehicles that are gonna be tendered. You gotta look at what the Public Works ask of our vehicles. I don't think any of you are gonna go out and buy a dump truck, I know I'm not. But we in the city invest an awful lot of money into these, and they have a short lifespan. Why? Because they carry salt. They travel on roads with the salt. To have them into a parked infrastructure building will help keep the longevity of these vehicles and make them more efficient in what they do. So I usually would arise in supporting wetlands. But to me, when you have to make a decision, which is best for the people, when I say the taxpayers of our city, if you look at the current infrastructure that they're working out of, it's deplorable. It's not worth sinking too much money in. The building will still remain efficient. It also has pits, which have been OSHA deregulated, so mechanics can't go down in them. So to have a modern facility with lifts and stuff like that. So when you weigh the balance to the wetlands versus granting this and increasing a brand-new infrastructure that I hope could last 50-plus years, I think you see the cost-benefit analysis that I do. And I hope you take that into your consideration. It was in consideration with the Infrastructure Committee, and the Infrastructure Committee fully supports this. I thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members, again, Andy Perlman, attorney with Pruney and Perlman here on behalf of the City of Nashua Public Works Department. With me tonight is Ethan Beals from Hayner Swanson, our director of photo from the division, Dan Hudson, our city engineer, and Brendan Quigley, sitting right here. Brendan is our wetland soil scientist from GOV Environmental Services, and Dan and Brendan can answer any questions the board will have. We are here tonight for a special exception, wetland special exception under section 190-115B, as well as the special exception general criteria of 190-134F. We are here to seek your permission to fill 2 man-made ditches in between a couple of buildings at the land use facility behind the new administrative building. We do so, we make this request because in order to build out the proposed DPW garage, we need 1 large flat site, and there are 2 thin man-made ditch wetlands right in the middle of the site. You have the plan set from both Ethan and Brendan. That you can see the 2, they've been labeled wetlands B, according to Mr. Quigley. You can see that there are 2 thin little wetlands that are in between the couple of existing buildings. They're right in the middle of where the proposed building is going to go. So we are seeking to fill just under 4,000 square feet of really, frankly, low-quality wetlands. We are not here for having to do anything with Teak Drive. I saw an email, I saw maybe some comments, people may be confused that this may be somehow related to Teak Drive, the water line for the fire training facility. It's not. We're just here for the DPW garage, the 2 thin wetlands on the proposed site. The You've heard some of the reasons from the alderman why this DPW garage is needed. I won't belay that point other than to say this has been kicked around for some time with the folks at the city, and they believe this is the best path forward for the servicing the entire city, the DPW fleet, and maintaining the investment that the city makes into the DPW operations. We are at 848 West Hall Street. We are in the R30 district. A portion of 848 and 840 West Hall Street, the Fort Hills landfill, is in the R9, but we're in the vast majority of the site is in the R30 district. All public utilities, water, sewer, electricity will service the site today. Again, we have a positive recommendation from the Conservation Commission. And Mr. Chairman, what we want to do is I want to have Ethan Beal kind of walk you through the wetlands and how we're going to address moving water from one pond to the other. And then I'll come back and speak to the criteria for the two portions of the special exception. That's okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, for the record, Ethan Beals, project manager at Hayner Swanson, doing business at 3 Congress Street here in Nashua, New Hampshire. As Attorney Perlman had just mentioned, it is proposed to impact 2 small wetlands totaling about 3,992 square feet of wetland impact. These 2 wetlands are really located in the northeastern portion of the project area, so not the overall 300-acre site, but of the project area. And they're located really adjacent to the existing, what we call a hoop-style storage building, where some of the larger equipment on the site is stored. Both of the wetlands are man-made drainage ditches, and their primary function is really to serve as an outlet to an existing stormwater pond located in the southern portion of the project area. The stormwater pond, which is identified in the wetlands report that was submitted as Wetland A, treats stormwater runoff from a portion of the landfill. A driveway culvert serves as the outlet to the pond, conveying water in a northerly direction and into the first segment of Wetland B, which I'll call B1 in my presentation. B1 is a little under 300 feet in length and varies between 5 to 8 feet in width, totaling about 2,043 square feet. Water continues to flow in a northerly direction and into a second driveway culvert, which ultimately breaks up Wetland B into the 2 parts, the previously mentioned B1 and wetland portion B2. B2 is about 230 feet in length and also varies in width between 5 and 8 feet. And this wetland totals 1,949 total, bringing the ultimate cumulative total to the previously mentioned 3,992 square feet of wetland impact. Finally, this watercourse enters a larger driveway culvert, which serves as one of the outlets to the site. This culvert continues to convey runoff in a northerly direction under the main landfill access driveway and outlets runoff into a larger wetland along the northerly property boundary of this area of the site. I'd like to note a few important things as it pertains to this wetland and this watercourse. First, this is an existing watercourse and drainage pattern, meaning that this is how stormwater runoff is collected and conveyed from this portion of the site today. Included in this drainage pattern is a portion of our project area that largely flows off the site without receiving any formal treatment of stormwater runoff. Second, as mentioned in the wetland report, these wetland ditches really exist in a highly disturbed and actively used portion of the site and really don't serve any other wetland function other than stormwater conveyance. And out of the wetlands flagged in the project area, they are the least valuable wetlands delineated. Finally, given that both of these wetland areas are man-made and function as stormwater features, we confirmed with staff that they don't actually carry a wetland buffer here in the city of Nashua. Once the project is constructed, in order to maintain the same drainage pattern and continue to provide an outlet to the large stormwater pond, a new 30-inch drainage trunk line will be constructed, which connects the pond outlet to the previously mentioned larger driveway outlet. Additionally, the proposed project will contain several stormwater best management practices, or BMPs, that will provide both formal qualitative and quantitative treatment of runoff leaving the site, leaving the project area that largely is untreated today. And finally, I'll just also point out again that we did meet with the Conservation Commission 3 times, 2 meetings, including a site walk, and we did receive their favorable recommendation. I'll turn it back over to Attorney Perlman.
Before you leave, any questions from the board? I just have one question. How would the treatment of the water compare to the current system? So currently these are, I guess, open treatment swales. Would it be enhanced, stay the same?
Yeah, so I would argue that the two drainage swales are really for conveyance, and I would not call them active stormwater treatment. The quality of stormwater entering and exiting them is largely likely the same. In the proposed condition, we're contemplating several larger subsurface stormwater practices that will be fully designed and permitted in accordance with New Hampshire DES alteration of terrain permit requirements, but they'll provide formal qualitative and quantitative treatment of runoff. So that's in addition to a large portion of the project area really just flows off the site untreated. So the proposed project will have the ability to capture larger volumes of stormwater runoff from the project area, get it below the ground, treat it before discharging some of it in larger storm events.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, again, Andy Perlman, again, if the board had questions for engineering, for Mr. Hudson, for more environmental issues, you have Brendan Quigley at your disposal. Just, a picture's worth 1,000 words. One of the plans provided with Mr. Quigley's report, bear with me. It looks like this. It shows the two thin wetlands B, two thin stretches of the man-made ditches, and that's largely where the garage is being proposed to be built. So we're looking to fill those so we can have a large pad for the garage. And what's happening is, you can see it, the large pond wetland A, that's not going to be touched. And what Ethan was just talking about is we're going to run a pipe, 30-inch pipe, from wetland B across the site over toward where the whole area drains toward the Trestle Brook area. That's the gist of how we're going to compensate the movement of the water following the filling of wetland B. And with that, Mr. Chairman, you have our application, so I'm not going to read word for word. I will just touch on the criteria unless any board members had a question at this time.
Questions from the board? Proceed.
190, 134F, the requested use. The requested use is the wetland impact is permitted pursuant to the wetlands section of the ordinance 190, 112, and 190, 115, and specifically with the criteria. So that meets section A. The requested use, again, filling the wetlands, not going to impact any traffic, unduly impair pedestrian safety. The requested use is not going to impact any public water or drainage or sewer systems, municipal systems, or harm the general welfare of the city. The special regulations will be addressed and are being addressed with section 190B. And we're not going to impact the character of the neighborhood. We are a landfill. We are behind the DPW administrative building. We don't see any impact to the neighborhood. As to the criteria under 115B, you have we have the special exception, the criteria as laid out from Hayner Swanson. And again, we believe we meet all of the criteria. We believe that we are, the proposed wetland filling cannot be reasonably avoided with respect to the garage. We believe we have the least damaging route with respect to these low-quality wetlands. If you ask Mr. Quigley, he will tell you these wetland B barely qualify as a wetland. They just meet the threshold to qualify, but they really serve no wetland purposes as we know of, so we believe we can meet that criteria. The mitigation measures being used, you just heard Ethan talk about the improved water quality treatment. That's going to be a part of this project. The overall impact to the encroaching wetland buffers, first, we have no buffers because just the nature of these wetlands. And secondly, the wetland A and the other wetland as labeled with Mr. Quigley's report are not being affected by this. We have minimal impacts to rare endangered species. The reports of the rare endangered species are on this particular lot, but they're far away. They're at the top of the hills, and they're not near this particular area where we're building. Temporary and permanent erosion controls will be implemented during the construction of the project. We're not going to impair wetland capacity. There's really very little wetland capacity involved here, other than moving water from wetland A across the site over toward Trestle Brook. We have no impact on the stability of any water body, the banks of any water bodies. That's section 8. And finally, we have really no impact to the hydraulic absorption capacity, because we have the 2 very low-quality wetlands that really just move channel water from one point to another. So, Mr. Chairman, we believe that we have addressed the criteria. And again, this is one step in the process to move the project forward. This obviously has to go to the planning board, AOT permitting with DES. And finally, there was a condition coming from Concom, and we're okay with that condition. And that's what I have, unless you had questions for me, or Dan, or Brendan.
Questions from the board for either Attorney Perlman or the engineers?
Thank you.
Seeing none. All right, so, Mr. Quigley, were you coming forward? Oh, you were making a motion, so I thought perhaps you were. So is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anybody who'd like to speak with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application? We do have one letter that we received, which I will read into the record. This is from Janice Arcon at 33 Teak Drive. Dear sirs, please be aware that the residents of Teak Drive, Hazel Avenue, and Westgate Village, to name a few, are strongly against building, digging, roads, or any construction that will impact the area wetlands or community that have been protected since the area was first developed over 40 years ago. At the Teak Drive Fire Road Board meeting, many residents spoke of the impact to this area. And again, I'm not going to read it all, but it goes on to note that the new public works facility does not need to be placed off Teak Drive. And I think, as alluded to earlier, there might be some confusion that this project is not accessing Teak Drive. But nevertheless, this was one letter of opposition that we did receive. Anybody else who wants to speak with questions, concerns, or opposition? If not, Attorney Perlman or anybody else on the applicant's team wish to speak with a rebuttal?
No, other than to say happy holidays, no.
All right, seeing that there's no more public input, I'm going to close the public hearing and open up the deliberations of the board. Thoughts from the board? Mr. Lionel.
Yeah, this is a very well put together presentation. And what convinces me is, first of all, the Concom approved it with a stipulation. These wetlands were actually constructed years ago to move water from one place to the other. They are deemed to be low-quality wetlands. And my understanding is that the water carrying dispersal will be improved by this construction over what it is now. So I am in favor of the application.
Other thoughts, Mr. Neely?
So I'm also in favor of the application. As Mr. Lionel said, I was actually really impressed with the quality of this application between the maps and all of the narrative. Wetland A was obviously our biggest concern. That's the largest wetland there, and they're not coming anywhere near A. Honestly, I think these 2 wetlands we're talking about are in wetlands in name only. They're swales. I do think the quality of water that's going to go to Trestle Brook is going to be significantly better. At the end of the day, this is a landfill. So I guarantee stuff is getting into these swales now. And to bury these, it's just the water's going to be better going over to Trestle Brook. We have the Conservation Commission who's actually is asking to add some more wetlands into the Teak Drive side, a net positive, I believe, for everybody. No wildlife was noted in the 2 swales. Once again, a great report from these folks, so I'm in favor.
I would agree, and I just also note, I think the applicants made the case for why the facility is necessary and why it makes sense to locate it in this location, and just given the size of the building and the surrounding support area, it really is unavoidable. Any other thoughts from the board? Anybody wish to make a motion? Mr. Boucher.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the special exception for the City of Nashua, owner of Division of Public Works applicant, 848 West Hollis Street, Sheet D, Lot 54, requesting a special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-112 to impact 2 other wetland areas, man-made drainage swales totaling approximately 3,992 square feet to facilitate the construction of the proposed Department of Public Works garage and maintenance facility project. It's in the R9 and R30 GMZ zones, Ward 5. We find that the requested use is listed in a special exception, is listed as a special exception. We find that the requested use will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. We find that the requested use will not overload any public water, drainage, or sewer system or any other municipal system to such an extent that the requested use or any developed use in the immediate area or in any other area of the city will be unduly subjected to hazards affecting the health, safety, or general welfare. We find that the special regulations, the special exception, what do you call it?
Special condition.
Excuse me?
The wetlands.
Yeah,
special
yeah,
conditions.
sorry, that's what, the wetland special conditions have been fulfilled. We find that the requested use will not impair the integrity or be out of character with the district or immediate neighborhood which is located, nor be detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare of the cities and residents of the city of Nashua. Also, we note that on October 9th, there was a favorable recommendation from the Conservation Commission, so we're going to adopt that with the one stipulation that they've added. So with that, I make a motion to approve the special exception.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Lionel. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor? Passes unanimously. Next is the application of Progress Realty Trust, 84 Lake Street, requesting the following variances from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16-3. 1, to exceed maximum number of stories, 2.5 permitted, 3 proposed. And 2, for a minimum land area, 40,000 square feet, 40,040 square feet, existing, 261,360 square feet required, to construct a 30-unit multifamily building. Note that the zoning board did approve this application for a 3-story, 24-unit building in 2022, and we approved this application in 2024, and it's about to expire, so you're requesting an extension.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Andy Perlman with Prunier and Perlman here in Nashua, here on behalf of the Progress Realty Trust. And Mr. Chairman, you're absolutely right. No changes to the plan, no changes to the presentation. We're simply seeking an extension of the application as we're about to expire. My client has had a lot on his plate and is just managing, projects. And we are coming back to this project, but we didn't want to lose the permit that we have, so we're just seeking an extension of what we had approved back in January 9th, 2024. So I could do a presentation again for you, but that's, I think you get it.
Any questions from the board? Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anybody in the audience with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application? If not, then I'll close the public hearing and open up the deliberations of the board. Thoughts from the board? Mr. Neely.
So, excuse me, I am in favor of this application. I do remember when it came the first time, and it's going to be the same rationale for me. That is an outdated building with some outbuildings that are may or may not be used, but at the end of the day, this property, what is being suggested with the residential building is a better fit for that area. That area has had a lot more residential grow in that area. The buildings are getting a little bit taller in that area than the 2.5 stories. Right across the street is a 2.5-story building. Right up the street on the corner of Lake, and I'm going to guess that's Pine, there's a 5-story that's grown in the last couple of years. Once again, the building that's there now, which is an office building, office buildings or folks who own office buildings having a really hard time filling those buildings with tenants. CNBC this morning, another report that the office vacancy rate is continuing to rise. So I do believe the applicant needs to make this adjustment. It is in the best interest of the city, as well as the fact that we are trying to add housing stock in that area. So for those reasons, I'm in favor.
Other thoughts from the board? Yeah, I would say I'm also in favor, absent any significant changes in the area or the zoning, I see no reason not to grant the 2-year extension, for the same findings that we made on January 9th, 2024. Anybody want to make a motion? I'll make a motion to that effect. I would move that the application of Progress Realty Trust, 84 Lake Street, requesting the following variances from section 190-16, table 16-3, and I've read them previously. I won't read through them all again. For a 2-year extension for the variance that was granted on January 9, 2024, be approved with the same findings that we found at that time. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Boucher. Any discussion? All those in favor? Passes unanimously. You too.
We don't want to see you again in 2 years. Well, for this case.
Yeah, that's true. Next is the application of Southern New Hampshire Regional Medical Center. The owner, Justin Parker, Classic Signs, is the applicant at 8 Prospect Street, requesting variance from Land Use Code Section 190-108C6 to exceed maximum wall sign area per city right-of-way for the following 3 right-of-ways. 100 square feet allowed, 143.87 square feet proposed for Prospect Street. 2, 100 square feet allowed, 255.8 square feet for Dearborn Street. And 3, 100 square feet allowed, 211.8 square feet proposed for Medical Center Drive. That's in the D1 MU zone in Ward 7, and I presume you are the applicant.
Yes, I am. For the record, my name is Justin Parker, representing Southern New Hampshire University by way of Classic Signs at 13 Columbia Drive.
And I think you meant Medical Center.
Oh, yep, Medical Center. 13 Columbia Drive, Amherst, New Hampshire. First off, I'd like to start out with a little bit of a correction on the write-up. The numbers listed for Prospect Street and Dearborn Street are the new signs. There are existing signs there. That's the square footage for the new signs. The total proposed for Prospect Street will be 238.32 square feet. There's already 94.45 existing. And for Dearborn Street, the total square footage proposed allowance would be 271.55 square feet. There's already 15.75 square feet of signage on that road. All right.
You can continue.
All right. So basically, the main goal of this project is just to increase the visibility of the hospital signage and just to aid in emergency vehicles finding their way. One of them is an emergency sign on Medical Center Drive, basically where the emergency center is. On Dearborn Street, that just signifies that you're in the right area, the Southern New Hampshire Medical Center. And then we have the main entrance, as well as another Southern New Hampshire Medical Center sign right where the ambulances and those sort of vehicles pull up. And now I'll go through the 5 points of law. Granting of the requested variance will not be contrary to the public interest because the tenant that these signs advertise for is a hospital with an emergency room and other medical offices. The increased visibility that these signs would provide would help emergency services find the hospital and the emergency room faster. The proposed use will observe the spirit of the ordinance. While the tenant is a business, it is not the typical commercial business that the signage that the is not the typical commercial business that the ordinance is mainly written for. This is a hospital with an emergency room and is more of a public institution that provides essential services to the community. I believe that the granting of these signs will benefit the public health and safety and welfare of its citizens. Substantial justice would be done to the property owner by granting the variance. The benefit to the public of having the hospital and emergency room easier to find by emergency vehicles will far outweigh whatever harm that the increased amount of signage would cause. The proposed use will not diminish the values of the surrounding properties. The signs proposed are attached to the building. It would not block any views or sight lines from the surrounding properties, and there are no competing businesses of the same type that are within eyesight of the signs. Special conditions exist such that the literal enforcement of the ordinance results in unnecessary hardship. Owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, denial of variance would result in unnecessary hardship because these signs are for a hospital and emergency room, which needs easily identifiable signs for the building itself and its multiple entrances. The 100 square foot per frontage limits the hospital's ability to adequately provide effective signage on the building as well as facing the street to better direct emergency vehicles and non-emergency healthcare services. There is not a fair and substantial relationship between the general purpose of the ordinance provisions and the specific application of the provision to the property because this business provides essential health care and emergency services. Rather than being a primarily commercial business, these signs are more for identification more than advertising. The proposed use is a reasonable one. These signs advertise a hospital with an emergency room, which is a necessary service provided to the community. These signs are mainly to help people identify the building rather than to increase sales or commerce for this business.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Not at this point.
Okay. Questions from the board? You're free to take a seat.
Okay.
Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak in favor of this application?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Carter, nice to see you. My name is Scott Cody. I'm the Vice President of Facilities for the Southern Hampshire Health System. It's really been over about 10 years since the last time we were here looking to update our signage for the main campus. Organizationally, we've recognized the need to update our image, number one, but more importantly, to improve the external wayfinding for patients. It's a busy campus. People need to be able to find their way around. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the law that was recently passed in the state to the south of us concerning Laura's Law, where an individual had trouble finding an emergency room. And there was a mandate that was actually out there to improve that. That gave us pause and a chance to step back and look to make sure that our facilities were well identified. And that is really driving a lot of what it is that we're trying to do here. One of the things I think that's very interesting in pointing out, because I've mentioned this several times when I've been before this board, when you look at the Southern New Hampshire Medical Center campus that's encompassing now about 8 city blocks downtown, we are surrounded by several different zoning districts. Just to give you an example of that, we have D1MU, we have RC, we have D3MU and GI all around us, all of which have different signing limitations and requirements associated with that. So I have often raised before this board and through my friends within the planning department that we should consider a medical district to allow us the ability to be able to do this a little bit easier in terms of being able to put things together. So again, the signage proposal that's been presented to you tonight, I think has been well thought out from an operational point of view, and we also believe it will bring pride to the community for the work that we do, and it's hard to believe that we've been part of this community really since 1893, and certainly very proud of what we do and look to continue that service for centuries moving forward. Happy to take any questions if you have any.
Questions from the board?
Thank you.
Seeing none?
Good to see you.
Thank you. Anybody else who'd like to speak in favor of the application? Anybody who'd like to speak with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application? Seeing none, then we're going to close the public hearing and open the deliberations of the board. Thoughts from the board? Mr. Lano.
First, I just have a question for Mr. Falk. Is there a problem with the discrepancy in the square footage between what there is in the proposal and what was advertised?
No, what we excuse me, what we advertised was the new signage that was proposed on some of these right-of-ways. We have it in the drawings, exactly what
Right.
Mr. Parker said, the 271.55 and the 238. So, I mean, if 10 people wrote this ad, you'd probably get 10 different ways of writing it. We just wrote it for what we thought was the additional signage that they proposed.
Okay,
I think
just,
it's-
just asking.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
we can defend it.
That's fine, and I'm in favor of the application.
Mr. Neely?
Yeah, I'm also in favor of the application. So this is a rambling campus. When you think about it, there's all kinds of nooks and crannies and signs in quite a few places. But at the end of the day, it's a safety matter. And many times in my votes, I default to whatever the safest method is, I'll make that vote. The fact that it's not super easy to find the emergency room exit is a concern, I think, as a community, which makes it kind of a no-brainer for me. And at the end of the day, it's a good application and great points raised by the applicant that probably we should be looking at this as its own district because it's such a rambling building complex. But anything to increase the visibility of customers who are driving in and out, and, let's be honest, this is New Hampshire. These people may be coming on a inclement weather day trying to find the right place to go, and there are multiple doors in this building. It makes sense for these larger signs to be where they need to be. So fully in favor of this application.
Other thoughts? Yeah, I agree, and I would just add that, certainly the parcel is distinct just in the fact that it's shaped, but also most particularly that it has a road frontage on 4 sides, including some heavily trafficked roads, particularly Medical Center Drive and Main Street, Kinsley Street coming in, so I think the need for the signage is pretty critical. Anybody want to make a motion? Mr. Lionel?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance requested by Southern New Hampshire Regional Medical Center owner Justin Parker, Classic Signs applicant, 8 Prospect Street, sheet 31, lot 22, requesting variance from Land Use Code Section 190-108C6 to exceed maximum wall sign area per city right-of-way for the following 3 right-of-ways. 100 square feet allowed, 143.87 square feet proposed for Prospect Street. This is the additional square footage, as I understand from Mr. Falk. 2 100 square feet allowed, 255.8 square feet for Dearborn Street, and 3 100 square feet allowed, 211.08 square feet proposed for Medical Center Drive. This is in the D1 and MU Zone, Ward 7. The board finds that granting the variance would not be contrary to public interest because this is wayfinding for the medical center to help emergency vehicles and clients and patients find the appropriate entrance to this very large campus. The spirit of the ordinance would be observed because these signs do not detract from the public and enhance safety. Granting the variance would do substantial justice because it would improve wayfinding to this, again, large business. There have been, as noted, issues in other areas where signs were inadequate, causing loss of life and other serious problems. So this would be substantial justice. We have no evidence that values of surrounding properties would be diminished. And unnecessary hardship, the special conditions of the property, this is a large and complex, or it is a complex sprawling over many city blocks with many entrances, and needing to find the correct entrance in an emergency is very useful. So there is a fair and substantial relationship between the general public purpose of the ordinance and the specific application of that provision. How do I get this right now? The proposed use is a reasonable one because it improves the signage, the wayfinding signage. So I make a motion to approve the variance.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Patra. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Next is the application of Joshua Naughton, trustee of 169 Daniel Webster Revocable Trust. Optima Dermatology is the applicant, 169 Daniel Webster Highway, requesting the following variances. 1, from Land Use Code Section 190-108C8, to allow a second wall sign of 32 square feet where no wall sign is permitted, but one wall sign exists of 32 square feet, approved by variance on September 27th, 2025. And the following variances from Land Use Code Section 190-101, Table 101-7. To exceed maximum ground sign size, 10 square feet permitted, 64 square feet exists from the previously mentioned variance, 93.25 square feet proposed. And 3, to exceed the maximum ground sign height, 8 feet permitted, 12 feet 6 inches existing from the previously granted variance, 15 feet and 9 inches proposed. This is in the RC zone in Ward 8.
Excuse me. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. My name is Morgan Hollis. I'm an attorney at Gottesman and Hollis, 39 East Pearl Street in Nashua. And I'm here representing the owner, 169 Daniel Webster Highway Revocable Trust, and also the applicant, Optima Dermatology. With me this evening is John Crowley of Optima to answer any questions. The property is 169 Daniel Webster Highway. The location is, if you're getting off at exit 2, if you're headed southbound, and you go off as if you're going to head south on Daniel Webster. As soon as you hit Daniel Webster, you take a right. It's immediately on your right. Excuse me, if you're coming the other way and you go off the exit and you get off on the opposite side of Daniel Webster, this location is immediately opposite that. So it is right at that corner of the sort of intersection between Daniel Webster Highway and the access road that goes over to Hudson off of exit 2 from the Everett Turnpike. The zone is RC, and that is the conundrum here. There's a zoning sort of issue in that this little corner is marked as RC, even though there are 2 existing buildings which are office buildings. One's fully occupied by St. Joe's Medical Offices, a variety of them, and then there's this office building. And it's RC because immediately behind it are multifamily, and immediately to the southwest along Daniel Webster Highway there is also multifamily housing apartments. But this is probably miszoned. It was recognized to be an unusual situation when a variance was granted to allow this building and also to allow the building next to it to be constructed a great number of years ago. And then after these buildings were up, it was recognized that allowing the signage in an RC zone is pretty limiting in that you can only have a certain limited size of ground sign, and depending on the amount of setback from the frontage, you're allowed no wall sign. Well, when you have commercial buildings, particularly at a busy intersection, you need some relief. The zoning board found that relief should be granted in 1999 when a ground sign was also allowed in addition to a wall sign, and the ground sign was allowed to be 32 feet instead of the 12 feet. And then in 2005, there were variances allowing the ground sign to be higher, that is 8 feet is the maximum height, and they allowed a variance of 12 feet 6 inches, and they also allowed it to be increased up to 32 square feet. So you had this sort of incremental increase in size, and the last variance in 2005 gave 64 square feet. So that's how you came to have what you have for signage out there today. My client just recently received a conditional use permit to occupy this building for medical office purposes, where patients will come from a fairly good distance for this type of medical practice, for the medical procedures that might take place therein. And a lot of those people are not as familiar as we all are with that little corner of Daniel Webster Highway, which, as you probably know, even on the best of days is quite busy, and on the worst of days is a nightmare. But it's important to have as much signage as possible. You have in your pamphlet a number of pictures, which I think, as Attorney Perlman and as the city has said, a picture speak 1,000 words in some difficult analysis, and this is one of those. Because normally I think a zoning board would be inclined to say, we'll be giving you relief. What more, why do you need more relief just because you're putting a different tenant in there? But I think if you look at the signage, you can see why variance was granted in the past. And now we want to occupy the third floor of that building, and the proposal is to move the existing sign for the real estate business down on the floor that is located and put the same size sign up above. So that's the wall sign. On the ground sign, you see the pictures of the existing ground sign, and you could try to remove all the panels and subdivide them into three, but none of the tenants are particularly happy about that because they've worked hard to get that recognition. So the best proposal is either to put a new panel under the existing sign, which may interfere with some limited visibility as you look to the north as you're exiting that site, or put it up above where it won't bother anybody. And that's the proposal, is to add another panel up above of the same size. So that's essentially what we're looking for. I think the pictures in your pamphlet also locate the property, locate the signage, and show that the distance of the building is about 200 feet back from the road. So you do need a sign of good size, and that's what was approved back in 2005 for the real estate business sign that's there, and we're asking for the same size. The arguments on the criteria, although we're asking for 3 variances, the arguments are essentially the same. And so with the chair's permission, I'm just going to cover all 3 in one argument situation. Yes. And I know you have to deliberate separately on the signs as you did for the hospital signage. First of all, the proposal, if the variance is granted, will not be contrary to the public interest. The criteria is pretty clear. You cannot alter the essential character of the neighborhood, and you cannot threaten health, safety, or welfare if you grant a variance. So in this instance, there's no real change. We're asking for an increase in the signage, but not substantial increase. The signage themselves will still all be under the 100 feet mark, which we heard about from the hospital. And so we think that there will be no change, no substantial change or alteration of the character of the neighborhood. It's a real, across the street are signs, which if you drove out there, you saw are quite a bit larger than this and quite a bit more demanding of attention. So we're just trying to compete in a fair way so people who are driving north and south on Daniel Webster in that area will know where it is and not go up and have to make a U-turn at Tully or go south and go quite a distance in order to make a U-turn. So it will not threaten health, safety, or welfare, and that the signs don't block anything. They simply show a better location and a better wayfinding method. In fact, it's arguable that by allowing the increase in size, because of the St. Joe's signs, which are right next door, a lot of people will be turning in looking for a medical center. If the signage is not clear and unambiguous, they'll make that left turn into the St. Joe's and won't know where they go. The traffic will get a little more congested. Whereas if the sign is right on the building, you'll know what you're looking for, optimally. Number 2, granting is in keeping with the spirit and intent of the ordinance. The same arguments as contrary to the public interest, not alter the essential character, nor will it threaten health, safety, or welfare. It's important to provide direction with signage, and in this instance, it will improve. We want to make sure everyone is able to locate where they're headed to and not spend too much time on the highways or creating congestion, slowing down at that intersection where if you're in the wrong lane, getting into the correct lane will be difficult. Number 3, it will not adversely impact values of the surrounding neighborhood. There are 2 office buildings. The next door neighbor office building, as I said, is occupied by a series of medical offices operated under the St. Joe's name. And adding additional signage will not adversely affect their value. In fact, it will probably maintain or even enhance their value, and that fewer people will get lost going in that direction. Number 4, substantial justice will be done. In a commercial or highway business, the signage that's proposed would be generally allowed for this size of this building based upon the front area of the building. But because it's not in that zone, we have to come before you. Is there any harm to the public if these larger signs are granted? No, there'll be no harm. So you have no real balance there of the injustice being against the private interest versus harm to the public. In this case, it would be in the public's interest to have additional signage. And number 5, the hardship requirement is you have to first demonstrate that the property is unique. I think the zoning board has found that this property is unique on 4 separate occasions. First for the use, and then following up from signage requests. So I don't think there's any question it's unique. The location makes it unique. The intersection makes it unique. The surrounding in the back of the residential multifamily makes it unique. The highway down ramp makes it unique. It's just a totally different property, but mainly it's the zoning that makes it unique. There's no fair and substantial relationship between the purpose of the small signage allowed in RC and no wall signage and enforcement against this property for smaller and lower standalone ground signs. Because this is in the wrong zone, it doesn't make sense to enforce the wrong zoning ordinance. So it really comes down to, it is clearly unique, there's no fair and substantial relationship, but is our proposal to add additional square footage reasonable? And we think it's reasonable given the nature of what surrounds it and the type of building and the access difficulties to this site. Happy to answer any questions, and is my client who's here this evening.
Questions from the board? Seeing none, you're free to take a seat.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and open the deliberations of the board. Thoughts from the board? Mr. Boucher.
I'm going to support the application. I believe that the applicant has made the case for all the criteria. Again, simply, there is a challenge with the zoning in this property. The building itself is almost several hundred feet back from the road. The sign itself is back from the road enough, so I don't believe that impedes any issues with adding signage on that. I think the scale of the building and what they're proposing, it's not out of character with anything else that's on Danielson Highway. And again, I travel down there often enough down that way, and it's pretty busy in that intersection. So you're paying a lot. Sometimes you're paying more attention to the traffic around you and everything that's moving around. So I think more, something more to identify what's there would be helpful. I've seen some people do some crazy things like take a left-hand turn when they're not supposed to. Again, because they've gone past and they're making some type of illegal U-turn or something. So I think anything to help out this facility, but again, it's off the road, it's not right on the road, and I think it's a reasonable request.
Other thoughts from the board? Yeah, I would agree, and I would just note it's a heavily traveled corridor, and I think as probably all of us have experienced, you miss the driveway, and on DW Highway, it's a thing, to turn around contributes to more congestion in the corridor. I support the application as well. Would anybody like to make a motion? Mr. Nealon.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance for Joshua Naughton, trustee of the 169 Daniel Webster Revocable Trust, owner, Optima Dermatology applicant, 169 Daniel Webster Highway, Sheet A, Lot 228, requesting the following variances. Number 1, from Land Use Code Section 190-108, subsection C, subsection 8, to allow a second wall sign of 32 square feet where no wall sign is permitted, but one wall sign exists of 32 square feet, approved by variance on 9/27/2005. And the following variances from Land Use Code Section 190-101, Table 101-7, number 2, to exceed maximum ground sign size, 10 square feet permitted, 64 square feet exists from a 9/27/2005 variance, 93.25 square feet proposed, and number 3, to exceed maximum ground sign height, 8 feet permitted, 12 feet 6 inches existing from a 9/27/2005 variance, 15 feet 9 inches proposed. This is in the RC zone in Ward 8. Granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest in that, as discussed by the board, there is quite a bit of traffic in that area. It's also a very unique area where you have not just the Daniel Webster traffic, but also 2 highway inbound lanes. And we've all noted that there's been some traffic deviations down there. So by adding this signage, this should add to the public interest of safety. The spirit of the ordinance would be observed in that, once again, due to safety and the design of Daniel Webster Highway and the location of the building on their property, it does make sense to have signage on the building, as well as a larger sign that makes it easily identifiable and sets it up so that folks can see it from a distance and make their adjustments for lane traffic to turn accordingly. Granting the variance would do substantial justice in that this is a new business and they should be allowed to advertise their services to the public. For the following reasons, the values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished. We had no testimony either way, but based on our experience, there's no reason a sign along Daniel Webster Highway would reduce property value. And as to unnecessary hardship, this property several times has been to the board for variances due to its location in a zone that may not really be indicative of the type of business this is. Being Daniel Webster Highway, it is a very unique set of traffic and businesses down there. Therefore, we believe that there would be a hardship to the property if the applicant was not allowed to properly advertise their services. And it is critical for the safety of Daniel Webster Highway that we allow these larger and multiple signs down there. So for those reasons, I do make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Patry. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Variance request passes unanimously. And the final application is, from Jacob Diamond, 13 Fulton Street, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-32B1 to exceed the maximum size of an accessory dwelling unit, 750 square feet permitted, 1,000 feet proposed, for an accessory dwelling unit on the first floor of an existing house in the RC zone in Ward 6. And I'm guessing you are the applicant.
That's me. I'm Jacob Diamond, 13 Fulton Street, Nashua. So, a little bit about me and about kind of the purpose of it and what I'm proposing here is I've lived in Nashua for most of my life. I've been the owner and occupant of 13 Fulton Street for almost a decade now. The purpose of it, I know you said 1,000, it's actually 860.55 square feet. But going through some of the items, granting the variance is not contrary to public interest because the accessory dwelling unit doesn't alter the exterior appearance or change the character of the neighborhood in any way. The work is entirely interior, so there's no exterior visual impacts, there's no additional noise, there's no effect on traffic density as the new codes that came out this summer for ADUs allows for me to have it, and the parking that I have supports the proposed plan. The design is, within safety and building regulations. It's protecting public safety and health and the welfare and preserving the look of the neighborhood. The intent of the ordinance is to allow for a small accessory dwelling unit in the space of the existing residential setting. Since there's no modifications made to the exterior, it's still, from the curb, it's still gonna look like a residential building. It's also worth noting too that it's not like this is a rundown building. I've been before the board before for this. It's an awkward spot. It's a corner lot. It's a building that's built in 1902. Substantial upgrades have already been done in terms of roofing, siding, windows, doors, electrical, and plumbing. They've all been updated. I've been in the trades with my grandfather since I was like 12 years old because I had the wingspan. So I've been in the trades a long time, and that's kind of what I do is I just tinker around. I work for a roofing and solar company, so as you can imagine, I'm pretty well traversed in this. It's not something that's it's not something that's unusual, but the thing that's unusual is the property itself. So going through, I don't know if you folks have a copy of the plans. In terms of like the top section, there's already a kitchen there, there's already a washer dryer, there's already stairs, there's already a bathroom, there's already a small room on the right, there's already a living room there. The reason for this is because this structure has 3 entry doors, 3 chimneys, 4 staircases. It's just such an awkward building too, especially when it was built in 1902. It looks like it's 3 different additions that have been stacked on from prior years, so it's just an awkward space to sort of navigate through. So the reason is the exterior wall on the right-hand side labeled bedroom 2. If you move that over, it eliminates the staircases to the basement. I still have a bulkhead. There's still gonna be staircases to the 2nd floor. It's just eliminating one of the staircases to have a more open, just have a more open floor plan. This way it's a more usable space. The reason for going for this is, you know, I have a growing family, and especially around the holidays, I don't know about you guys, but having somewhere to put the in-laws is, that's kind of, you know, one of the things that sort of struck it, especially with, what else we got here? Especially where it's not going to have any overcrowding or disruption to the neighborhood. It's not going to really be impacting much. The only thing I'm asking for is some additional square footage. If you consider that there's 3 entry doors, it's less than a 10 by 10 of kind of what I'm asking for, because it's not like you're going to be able to use the space around any of the doors. And I've already tried to look if I can move any of the doors between the deck, the front door, and that back door being the shared space. There's really no way to sort of move the doors or to move staircases or to really do what I'm trying to propose and have it be a functional, usable space where I can, you know, put more roots down and continue to grow my family here in Nashua. Let's see if I have anything else. Is there any questions anybody has? That's all I had.
Questions from the board? Mr. Boucher.
The 2nd and 3rd floor in the building, I'm assuming that's 1 unit and you're occupying that?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Neely.
So thank you for your testimony. That helped a little bit. You know, we all do drive-bys, and so, you know, do a drive-by of your property. Because of the snow, I couldn't tell. Really, what's the parking situation in your, how many spots do you really have in a driveway? I couldn't really tell.
So there is concerns in the neighborhood about parking. I'll typically park cars on the grass. If I do that, I can squeeze 4. I have the patio in the back where I could squeeze another. Really, if I really tried to, I could squeeze 6 cars in there, but just with the curb cut, I can fit about 3.5 cars.
So yeah, I don't want you to squeeze things, but you said you can get 3 cars in with the curb cut as is. Okay.
Exactly.
And, yeah, it's definitely unique when you look at your building to you know, I would have thought the primary was on the 1st floor, which is where you're trying to put the ADU. So just to confirm, so 2nd and 3rd floor is really 1 unit. 1st floor is going to be an ADU. One thing that kind of threw me a little bit, and maybe you can clear it up for me. So when I looked at the plans, everything said apartment. This is really about an ADU, right? When I looked at the
I think
plans
the
of
architect
Markov.
was a little bit confused on that.
Yeah. So sometimes, and I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So really, you're talking about an ADU, that it's just the person putting your plans together, road apartment, da-da-da.
I mean, if I was good at CAD, I would have done the plans myself, but yeah, I already had to go through a few renditions with this thing as I was trying to move it around. But yeah, it's really just an ADU, which is, I mean, as you guys probably know, the rules have changed on that over the summer, and that's kind of why I jumped on this, and I've been kind of working on this the past 3 or 4 months to get to this point.
And then my last question is, so I think you mentioned at the beginning when you first got up here, so really you're looking for 860 square feet, it's because you're probably not going to include that staircase, which I think was probably included in the 1,000 feet, right?
Yeah, if you want to include the staircase, or I don't know if
No, we
people
don't
want
want
to
to include it.
speculate
Like,
at all. and
what's
say
the
if
real
that's a
living area?
one-season room.
Okay,
the
so
porch.
the real living area is going to be 860 square feet, right, for the ADU?
Exactly. The entire footprint of the entire space is about
Gotcha.
the house. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
It's just an awkward, I mean, even when you look at the plans itself, there's just so many jogs and bumps. It's just an awkward layout of the property itself.
Other questions from the board? Mr. Boucher.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear whether or not they tested that you would comply with the accessory dwelling unit criteria?
Yep, the only criteria that I don't meet is the 750.
Okay.
And I'm at, in that ADU 860.55, which is at the center of the plans. And then if you subtract kind of the unusable space, it really is less than a 10 by 10 what we're talking about.
All right, thank you. I might have missed that, but thank you very much.
No, no worries, Ed.
Other questions from the board? Seeing none, you're free to take a seat.
Perfect, thank you, guys. Happy holidays.
Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak in favor of the application? Is there anybody who'd like to speak with questions, concerns, or opposition to the application? Please feel free to come up to the podium and just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Rick Markeel. I'm a property owner with abutting properties to Mr. Diamond. And I sent you folks a letter. Have you get that?
Yes, we did.
And there's a few concerns we have, even though he has good intentions for this add-on on the first floor.
Could you be sure to speak into the microphone, please, because we're
Oh, okay, I'm
recording.
sorry.
Lower it a little bit, if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, if you review my letter, it seems that the second and third floor have been occupied by what we perceive as tenants, maybe not currently. So the way he's used the building over the past few years is not in character with a single-family house. And I'd like you to give that some consideration. And my neighbors that are here, I mean, we live right next to the house. And, I mean, we can't document on paper exactly, but all we're relating to you folks is what we observe. And if you read one portion of my letter suggests that he's been absent most of the time, although he may be present now. And I'd say over the last 6 years, he's been almost like an absentee landlord, because he's had the second and third floor occupied. The arrangement, I don't know if they were tenants per se, but he just, in his testimony, related to you folks that there was bathrooms and kitchens on the second and third floor. So that's something to think about. So if you were to grant him this variance, that would, even though it's an accessory unit on the first floor, that would actually create 2 units on the first floor and 2 units second and third floor. That doesn't seem to be in keeping with a single-family home. It's just something, and then parking, he mentioned curb cut. I grew up knowing the people that own that house from the 1950s, and that curb cut can accommodate 2 cars, not 3.5. So over the course of time, we've seen as many as 4 cars stacked in there. So how can you have 4 cars stacked in there and only maintain a single-family home profile? So anyway, I mean, we try and get along with our neighbors, and it's not our intention to be spiteful or mean, but you do have criteria here that needs to be satisfied to do this project. Owner occupancy, the owner must live or either live in or the primary or the ADU, and it has to be a one-house arrangement. Now, he's maybe residing there now, but what we fear is he will make these upgrades, and a year or 2 from now, he may sell the property, and we're stuck with additional congestion with 4 units. because the new owners won't be concerned about what we're talking about now. And I guess I'd wish you would review I've got an older letter there from back in 2019 when he wanted to put on a third story for extra room for himself. Well, he put on an extra story for room for other people to occupy it, not just himself as a single-family arrangement. Well, I appreciate the board's consideration, and I think maybe one or two of my neighbors might want to corroborate some of my statements. Thank you, people.
Questions from the board? You can take a seat. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak with questions, concerns?
Gentlemen, my name is Guy Paterno, and I live at 25 Fulton Street. And on that house where you're staying, I mean, I always thought it was a three-family, because at one time, like he said, the third floor and the second floor was occupied. And there were two musicians, because they come out on their decks and play their guitars. And they were there for, I'd say, a good year and a half anyway. And then all of a sudden they were gone. And then there was just somebody else in there too, but I didn't see them much at all. But that's all I know, is that they've been renting them, well, the units out anyway, that I know of. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Questions, concerns, or opposition?
Good evening. Michael Patton. I live at 14 Fulton Street. According to this house across our place is the parking. There's always 4 cars in the parking lot and 2 on the side. So there's usually 6 cars that will occupy that unit. As far as the owner, he is living there now. I believe he may have lived in South Carolina, or he also has a real estate picture in the window, which we can't understand. But they definitely were renters. We've talked to them quite a few times. We have yard sales, and they say they like the place and living there. But as him living there, I haven't seen him there much, except for the last year, let's say. And that's basically all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who'd like to speak? I'm sorry?
Oh, I thought you were.
Oh, no. Did anybody in the board have a question? All right, if there's nobody else who'd like to speak, you do have the opportunity to provide a rebuttal.
How we doing, folks? Jacob Diamond, 13 Fulton Street. I mean, I understand where if you've lived in a neighborhood for multiple generations and you've seen it since, 100 years ago, it can definitely feel, overwhelming when somebody's coming in and making changes. It's worth noting that the intent of parking additional cars on the lawn is because parking is tough there, and that's an attempt to try to alleviate any stress from any of my neighbors. The signs he's talking about in the window are from Trinity Solar, from the company that I work for. I work remotely, and I operate offices out of New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania. So in terms of not being there, I'm usually on the road, coming and going, and I don't know about North Carolina and all that, but it's also worth noting that I'm not asking for a variance on parking, as the curb cut allows for what the ADU regulations are. I try to be a good neighbor. I try to stay out of people's way. I try to, bake folks bread for my spouse over there. I try as best I can. It's just, sometimes it's difficult living with neighbors, especially in the situation that we're in. The purpose of this is mostly for the growing family, for when, relatives need to stay over and things like that. I have no intentions of moving or selling at any point in the next decade, so that was all.
Questions from the board? Just two.
Yep.
Not so much a question, but can you confirm that you are a resident of property?
Yes.
And can you confirm whether or not it is currently a single-family home?
It is currently a single-family home, yep. There is an open permit to put a stove on the 3rd floor, which is part of this whole ADU process of making the first floor the ADU. So there's no kitchen on this 3rd floor as of right now, but there is an open permit for it, so it has been approved.
Any other questions? Seeing none, you can take a seat.
Thank you, guys.
So you do have the opportunity for the folks who spoke in opposition. One of you can come forward and give us the last word if you wish. You don't have to, but if you want to speak amongst yourselves and see whether or not one of you wants to come forward, you can do that, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Again, I'm Rick Markeel, and I'm the owner of 2 properties that abut 13 Fulton. And my final analysis is he's trying to satisfy you folks to get approval. And things have changed after you granted him the first permit back in 2019 for the third story added. And as 2 of my neighbors have corroborated, there have been other people in there that we perceive that were tenants. Maybe that's not the case now. So what we're thinking moving forward, he's trying to make it so that you folks will digest and accept and that he is in compliance with the conditions. But after a few months or another year, I believe he'll revert back to more than one occupant other than just his own family. So in the end, it's my opinion that it'll turn into modified back to at least a 3-unit building and not a single-family home over time. So I wish you would take into consideration the content of both my letters. And if you have any doubt, is there a provision for you folks to table something like this, to look into some of the details further?
That's at the discretion of the board.
All righty. I appreciate your consideration, board members.
And were there any questions from the board? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and open up the deliberations of the board. I will just note, I don't know if other people did, but I did go onto the assessing records to see whether or not it's listed as a single-family residence, and it is. Mr. Lionel.
Whether this building in the past was used by renters or whether it might be in the future used by renters is not in our purvey. We are looking at the rules for an ADU, which has been noted were dramatically simplified by the state legislature this year. So there's a lot less that we can do, and we're simply being asked to approve a rather small overage on the square footage for an ADU, and I don't see any reason to oppose that.
Other thoughts, Mr. Boucher?
I also agree with Mr. Lionel, all the points he spoke to. Again, on the face of it, on what they're asking for, I don't see any reason why we could or we would deny the application. Again, for those folks, and I don't want to discount the folks that have come out, I think that going forward, I think if they have any concerns, I think that's that is a code enforcement issue type of thing. And I think that's where it should be addressed if there's additional units being put there. And as far as the application for a stove or anything on the 3rd floor, again, there's processes that have to be in place. And again, if that was done without going through the correct channels, again, that's a code enforcement issue, which we do not get involved with. But for the application like Mr. Lionel said, for what they're asking for, I think it's a very reasonable request. Again, notwithstanding any of the concerns that the neighbors have.
Any other thoughts? Mr. Neely?
Yeah, it's tough for the board when we have, kind of a he said, she said type situation. And we don't like it when neighbors are in opposition. That doesn't make a comfortable situation for the folks living in the neighborhood or us. So that being said, I appreciate Mr. Markeel, both his testimony, and I get the frustration that's coming out of there. I do believe the applicant knows he probably has some fences to mend with the neighbors, and I do understand that is part of what's driving the angst in this neighborhood is those are very thin streets. I know I was down there doing my drive-by, and I was fighting with an Amazon van to have enough room to move around down there. So I get it, right? So I get that it's every time there's a car in the street, it makes things significantly worse than some other areas. But as these other two gentlemen noted, we have to go with what the application says, what the testimony says. He is abiding by everything on the accessory dwelling unit affidavit, and it is significantly easier to get an ADU than it was even a year ago. I think part of what brings up the angst is that it's not normal for us to see an ADU on the first floor with the primary residence on the second and third floor. Like, it kind of messes with your senses a little bit when you look at it. Usually when we hear an ADU or see an ADU, it's in the basement or it's the one on the third floor, not the main area. So I think that's throwing things off here a little bit. So I am going to be in favor of the application, but once again, I do think the applicant knows he has some work to do in the neighborhood there, to mend some fences.
Yeah, I would agree. I struggled with this a bit, but I think particularly that it's at 860 square feet and not 1,000 makes it easier for me. But we see this challenge anytime an ADU is proposed in an existing dwelling. You have the footprint that you have the square footage that you have, and it can be challenging to try to adapt it in any other way. Whether it was on this floor, the basement, or the second floor, we'd probably be looking at the same issue. I do appreciate the concerns from the neighbors. The reality, though, is that multiple unrelated people can live in a single-family home, and whatever the relationship is between them financially or otherwise isn't something that's within our purview either. The applicant has stated it's a single-family home and that he does in fact reside there. City's assessing records say it's a single-family home, so I think that is what we have to go with. Any other thoughts? Anybody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Mr. Neely.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance for Jacob Diamond, owner, 13 Fulton Street, sheet 100, lot 13, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-32, subsection B, subsection 1, to exceed maximum size of accessory dwelling unit, 750 square feet permitted, 1,000 square foot proposed, although the testimony did say it would be 860.55 square feet. And this is proposed for an accessory dwelling unit on the first floor of existing house. This is in the RC zone in Ward 6. Granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest in that this, as noted, is a single-family home per the records of the city, and that an ADU is permitted under relatively new state rules, and the extra 110 square feet, the board does not find egregious as a size over the allowed 750 square feet. The spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Once again, the city has been looking for more housing stock, specifically ADUs to be built, and while most are under the 750 square feet, the board does not find that 110 square feet would be egregious. Granting the variance would do substantial justice, as the applicant did note that he does have right under state law to build an ADU, and that they're going to be using that for additional housing, for their own additional housing needs. We do not have any testimony about the value of the surrounding property being diminished, but in the board's opinion, the surrounding property values will not be diminished based on what we have seen in the past. And special condition of the property, there was some discussion about this ADU being on the first floor. The applicant did note that there are some, I think he said 3 stairwells as well as 3 chimneys that cause some interesting angles inside of this building. It does not make sense from the board's point of view to put up some type of partition to take away 110 square feet. As noted, specifically by Mr. Mankara, we often see properties where it just makes sense to go to a different amount of square footage due to the footprint of the house. And it would be egregious for us to ask them to put up a wall to take out 110 square feet. So for those reasons, I make a variance to make a motion to approve the variance.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Lionel. Any discussion? All those in favor? So your variance application is granted. I haven't stated it earlier because we had a lot of kind of frequent flyers, but there is a 30-day window of appeal, so you should just be mindful of that. You are free to proceed, but keep that in mind. And of course, for you folks as well. All right. So, moving on to the rest of our business, I don't think we have an upcoming agenda.
No, we don't have a second meeting in.
Gentlemen, I'd like
Sir.
to thank you for your consideration and your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We do not have a second meeting in December, so we still have plenty of time that we're accepting applications. So we won't even really be advertising for the next meeting until December 30th. So we still have a little bit of time. So no new agenda as of yet, but as soon as we have it, we'll certainly email it to the board members.
I think we all appreciate not having a meeting on the 23rd.
Yeah.
So.
So it'll be the 27th. No, 23rd.
Yeah, it'd be the 23rd.
23rd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was looking at it like, it was on my calendar.
Yeah,
no. Approval of minutes, they emailed to us. Mr. Potts?
The first page, there's the little block of voting on this case, which, that was postponed, so we didn't vote. I think that was just maybe a copy and paste, like on the very first page, Carter.
Okay.
And it also said I was one of the voting members, but I wouldn't have been, because I was the 6th wheel at that meeting. And then, page 19, the 4th paragraph, where Mr. Mankara stated that, I think what we want to say, Mr. Mankara stated that there will be no significant impact on habitat or endangered species. Strike will result, and then to the last sentence, and that there was no testimony on, about that, as it is clearly a residential lot. Like that 4th paragraph just, I think, was missing a little bit, but.
I think that cleans it up.
That's all I had.
Very good. Anybody else? Seeing none, anybody want to make a motion on the minutes to adopt as amended?
So moved.
Mr. Patry? Second. Seconded by Mr. Boucher. Discussion. All those in favor? All right, I don't think we have any reason to review the bylaws.
No regional impact.
Oh, no, yeah,
We don't
right.
have a new agenda.
And so that takes us to the public meeting, which is regarding 36 Granite Street. We're being asked to provide meaningful findings of fact from the Housing Appeals Board based only on the certified record as it existed before the ZBA hearing on September 26, 2023. So I think everybody has been provided with a packet of information, which, so we've had an opportunity, I think, to see the order from the court, and staff has thoughtfully copied prior meeting minutes and the application materials. So I think the charge before us is to articulate for the court what our findings are, and I would say specific to each criterion, based solely on the record. I certainly have my thoughts. I've made some notes, which I'm happy to share, but I'd be interested to hear if anybody else has some thoughts. drawings they wish to show.
So just to confirm, when we do get to the point where, so first of all, we are going to have a discussion, correct?
Yes.
All right, and then when we do get to the point where we're going to make a motion, we're going to go the full 5 points, right?
Yes.
Right, okay.
At least that's what I would suggest,
That was
yes.
my understanding as well, okay.
Mr. Linnell?
Yeah. As I understand it, we're supposed to ignore what happened at the last meeting. And from my perspective, nothing that I heard at that last meeting changed my view on any of the criteria. I believe that we made the correct decision multiple times. And I see no, I would be in favor of simply repeating what we said the last time. Reading the HAB ruling, to me, my interpretation is that there was this view that we had somehow allowed the additional testimony to influence our decision. And I didn't see any evidence of that. I noted that, in what the lawyer was saying, that the zoning board, isn't supposed to suggest other ways of doing what the applicant wants to do, but that's exactly what we do in many cases. And I'm thinking just recently where somebody wanted to put the solar array in the front yard within the setback. And we had suggested at least 2 different ways they could accomplish this without violating the ordinances, and we denied that variance. And to me, this is the same thing. The owner wants to do a particular thing, doesn't want to do it the way that the board would suggest, that avoids a violation of the variances. Well, sorry, one of the criteria is there's no other reasonable way to do what he wants, and there is, and we said that. So, am I upset? Am I thinking this is a waste of our time? Yes, I thought, but this is what we get, so.
This is what we get. I agree. I don't understand. I think this is, I would agree that it's a waste of time because I don't understand what it's accomplishing. Nevertheless, it's what we have to do. So at least my approach was I went through primarily the minutes. And I take this very narrowly in the sense of, I think that not only do we have to find specific findings for each criterion based on the record that was before us at the time, but even if I might have a different thought today, I don't think I can apply it if it's not actually in the record. So I looked at it very much, based on what was in the minutes, what the board said, and what the testimony that was made. Where this goes after this, I don't know, but I guess I can guess. Mr. Padre?
I wonder if it would be helpful if one of us, maybe you, Mr. Chairman, came up with sort of a draft proposed findings that could have citations to the specific, language of the specific pages, specific lines in the minutes, so that we can ensure, that we're meeting all of the points of law and that they're all adequately supported in the record.
Good suggestion. I did. I didn't cite lines in the minutes, but I'm happy to tell you with what I came up with if that's helpful for folks.
Absolutely.
So the first finding is that granting the variance would not be in the public interest because it would alter the essential character.
Mr. Chairman, should we formally make a motion so that we can have all of this incorporated into our findings before we start going over them, or?
I think that's fair.
So
All right.
before we get to that, if we were going to make that a motion, maybe we could go a little more discussion before we
Sure,
get to the
absolutely.
motion? Because I do have some points that I would like to throw out there that may
Okay.
add to this, if I have the floor.
Please.
All right, thank you. So I do want to put on the record that I am still flabbergasted that this has come back to us again. I thought we were very clear multiple times. I don't know why they have, and the court has come back to us. And I will fully put it on the record that feel like they have kicked it back at us because they did not want to make a decision, and I do not believe that's what their purpose is to keep kicking it back at us. That being said, as Mr. Mankara was talking about, it was critical to go through the original minutes, but I also thought it to be very instructive to go through the letter provided by Divine Millimet. And I will tell you, I got my marker out, and we did, I do believe that Attorney Swiniarski, and I'm sure I'm killing his name, was making statements that we have not always seen as the rule of law here. At the end of the day, I do believe he was taking some licenses to make some assumptions, as Mr. Lionel was alluding to, and just obfuscating the whole thing. And when we're talking about breezeways and whatever, that was just a bunch of chaff thrown out there. So I did go through his letter specifically today, and I'd like to just point out a couple things from his letter specifically that I do not believe was brought forward properly during the testimony from him originally, and then when it came back the second time. So if I'm going to reference his letter here on page 4 of their letter, top paragraph, yes.
This is the letter of November 1, 2024?
This is November 1, 2024, correct. So page 4, under the proposed use is a reasonable one. He had noted in his letter that the property is relatively unique from others in the neighborhood because it has separate access points on 2 public rights-of-way, Granite Street and Davis Court. I would argue that it is not unique because there are at least 3 properties that have that same criteria. And Mr. Falk in his statements had also noted there was a 4th. And I'm maybe splitting hairs here, but at the end of the day, this is not a specifically unique property, in my opinion. The applicant stated that the applicant proposes to better utilize the property in conformity with the urban residential setting in which it lies by providing an additional single-family structure. This is, in my opinion, not consistent with the neighborhood. We did not find anything in blocks around that where there were multiple properties with multiple residences that were not one building. And that's really the crux of the matter here, as Mr. Lionel was alluding to. At the end of the day, any of the other multi-family structures in blocks around this were all one building. While there were some outbuildings, none of them were habitable for humans. It was barns, it was, whatever. For this to move forward is very much not consistent with the neighborhood in any way. And I think that's a key part of why we ruled against it. This is an older, established neighborhood. While it is not specifically in a historic district, they are older houses, they are larger, longer lots. When you take a look at the map, it's a fascinating neighborhood in that specifically this property and several on either side are long and thin, and the conversation that we had is to stick another residence down in the middle where they're proposing. That's going to kill the sight lines for everybody else. And so I do think that would lead to a lack of substantial justice for all of the neighbors, who, by the way, came out and opposed this, partially for that reason. And at the end of the day, I don't think...
The first time, too.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Right. And so as I read the record again, and as Mr. Mankara was talking about, I really tried to get my focus down. There was a lot of testimony from Davis Court that I think took us into the weeds a little bit, but a couple of members on the board brought us back out. And at the end of the day, it wasn't so much about the paper street on Davis or the amount of traffic. We can't get into people moving snow, where's the snow going to go? But I think really it came down to Granite Street. And it was specifically, in my opinion, it was the neighbors all along Granite Street who said, hey, we're all living in harmony here. We don't need another building plopped down at the end of our yards here. Attorney Swiniarski did state that he thought everybody else was accessing their yards from Davis Court. We did specifically ask one of the neighbors, and she said, that's not the case at all. I'm not driving in my backyard. There's no evidence of doing that. So Attorney Swiniarski was mistaken. And I'm almost done here. Page 2 on that letter as well. One of the statements from the attorney Swiniarski is that granting of the variance would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, but instead would make the property more harmonious and compatible with the existing neighborhood. As I stated a few minutes ago, that's not harmonious at all. In fact, it's whatever the opposite of harmonious is really what was going to bring that about.
Cacophonous.
Yeah, there we go. So I do find his statement in here to be absolutely one of the reasons that we cannot move forward with granting this variance. There were some other things that I come up with as well from the original testimony, but it really was apparent to me that the direction he was coming, we couldn't take all this information in his letter as gospel, because I do think he was taking some liberties and making some assumptions that we couldn't jump to that assumption based on what the neighbors were discussing. Once again, a very unique neighborhood. We gave them a great option to build on. And once again, we wouldn't even be here. They build onto the back of the house like many of the other properties in that area. They have their multifamily house. They move on. I do know that we were a little upset when Attorney Swiniarski was talking about his breezeways and how we are trying to avoid variances. At the end of the day, the thought process needs to be, we don't want folks here to get variances. Variance means something has gone askew, or there's something that with the property that needs to be looked at. In our opinion, our base opinion, there is nothing special about this property that necessitated, excuse me, the need to have a second residence at the end of their property.
Anybody have anything else to add before I make a motion? So I'll go ahead and I'll put this in the form of the motion, and then when I've gone through it all, feel free to suggest amendments.
Okay.
To make sure that we've captured everything. So I'd like to make a motion, and if this is the correct way to phrase it, to clarify the findings of fact made by the Zoning Board of Adjustment at its hearing of September 26, 2023, and to amend those findings or clarify them as follows. Granting the variance would not be in the public interest because it would alter the essential character of the neighborhood by adding an additional dwelling unit at the end of a small, narrow, dead-end street, and by creating two principal uses on a single lot. Granting the variance is not consistent with the spirit of the ordinance for the same reasons cited above, in that it would alter the essential character of the neighborhood by adding an additional dwelling unit at the end of a small, narrow, dead-end street, and would create two principal uses on a single lot where the ordinance permits only one in this district. And I would add that the board finds that having two principal uses on a single lot is fundamentally different than one principal use on the lot, even if that one principal use consists of multiple units. Substantial justice could be done in that granting the variance would allow the applicant to realize a more intensive use of his property. And I realize we might want to discuss that. There is no evidence that the value of surrounding properties would be diminished, and we received an opinion from a licensed realtor that it would not diminish surrounding property values. There are no special conditions distinguishing the property from other properties in the area. Though the property is relatively large and has frontage on two streets, multiple properties in the area, including in the immediate vicinity of the subject property, are as large or larger and/or have frontage on two streets. And that the literal enforcement of the ordinance would not result in unnecessary hardship because there are alternative ways that the applicant can create an additional unit on the property. Does that capture it?
I think so. I mean, I was wondering, what I notice is you're basically taking out of the motion the discussion about the paper street and trying to get into a private driveway, basically.
I can add that in. I wasn't sure how necessarily.
I don't think you need to, because
okay. I thought about that.
I'm just bringing it up, but I think that kind of blurs things a bit, and it's not necessary to our argument.
That was my concern, because I was also going to mention that it could impact the private rights of other people to access that street. But yeah, I figured it might blur things as well, so I didn't go down that road. I didn't mention the snow, although I thought about it, and the turning around of, vehicles.
Yeah, that gets into the weeds.
It gets into the weeds, and so I didn't go there, but I did think about it. Mr. Patry?
Yeah, I think it's fair to exclude that, since I don't think that most of the neighbors mentioned that. Maybe there was one or two. But I don't think that was, a primary concern. I might just add to the motion that we're making these findings explicitly on the record and of the minutes of the September 26th meeting, which I think there's ample support in the minutes for all those findings.
I would accept that, and then, Mr. Neely?
If everybody would like to add this, I would like to make a statement that we find that the request for this second residence is not consistent with the neighborhood. We could not find other properties in the near area that had the two residences, the two separate, and I'm losing the verbiage here. But.
Right.
And this is an older established neighborhood in which they are larger lots that are designed to have larger lawns, and we do think that this gentleman putting this residence on the back would potentially affect the enjoyment of the neighbors with their sightlines. We may not want to put that in there, but I do think it's critical.
I wouldn't put that in there, because
No.
we often
I
grant
understand.
variances.
I agree.
And I was thinking back, and maybe I'm not remembering correctly, but I don't recall ever granting a variance for more than one unit on a lot, except for condominium developments in this city.
We did allow a conversion of a barn once.
Road.
Yeah, and in that case, I believe there was an immediately abutting property that also had a second unit detached. But in this case, I'd be happy to add to both criterion 1 and 2, and, we found no other properties in the neighborhood or in the area that had a second principal dwelling.
Could we also put in there that we do not believe that this property is unique from others in the neighborhood?
Yeah, I thought I had that.
Okay. Maybe you did, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just put it in the context of there are no special conditions distinguishing the property from other properties in the area.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's key. I think that's really important.
Yeah. So, now I can't remember, I made the motion, did anybody second it, because we wound up
No.
discussing it? You seconded it.
Okay.
So is the seconder good with those amendments?
I am, yeah.
And Carter, you'll be able to capture this all, I assume, to,
I will. I mean, I couldn't write everything down, but I'll listen to the tape, I'll watch it on YouTube, and I think this discussion I will probably write down almost verbatim.
okay.
Or as close to verbatim as possible. We don't do the ums and the ers and,
Right.
things like that, but we will pretty much write down everything.
I'll also give you this, but
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
going
thank
to.
you. So it'll be very clear what the board said.
All right.
And it's gonna be on YouTube anyway. And
Oh, it
if
is right.
If it comes down to the fact that we need to provide that, they can look on the website and find it.
Okay.
And I'll have these minutes done within 5 business days as usual.
Right.
So,
And there are other things I thought about putting in there too. We had a discussion on condominiums and the condominium form of ownership, but I decided not to go down that road either.
I think what you've got is the simpler the better, and it's clear that this does not meet all 5 points of the law, and that's why we denied it.
Right. So hopefully this is a take. I will note, I mentioned it to Carter and Sam, but in the minutes, I think there is an error in who voted. It notes that there were 3 people voting on the case.
I know why.
Why?
Because you and Evstathia were on Zoom. And you can only physically vote. We had that rule that you can only.
Yeah, I remember that.
Now it makes sense. I forgot about the Zoom. I'm like, why am I participating in this conversation?
You could,
And
that's
so
why
is
you could
Staffy.
participate in everything, but no one could vote.
Okay, that makes sense. So
Because
there
if
was no
Staffy,
error.
if you remember, she used to come on Zoom a lot.
A lot.
Mostly, yeah.
Most-
And then there was one that I came in on Zoom, and I wasn't aware of this rule, and I was saying, wait a minute, why can't I vote? But- Okay.
That was the reason why.
Now that makes sense. I totally forgot about the Zoom rule.
Yeah, Sam picked
Okay.
that up, so kudos to Sam for
Kudos
finding,
to Sam.
for
All right.
finding that out.
Okay, so
Right.
we're ready to vote?
Yes. Unless there's any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimously.
Motion passes unanimously. I get the minutes done and a letter to the attorney and whoever else needs to get.
Should we formally approve the minutes at our next meeting before that goes out, or do we not need to worry about that?
No, we don't need to do that now.
Yeah, I mean, the draft minutes will be there. I don't know if we're on a deadline or not.
We can just label them as draft for right now. I don't think we need to call a special meeting to approve the minutes.
No, I don't think we need to do
No.
that.
I don't think we do that. Hey,
I mean, the draft minutes are available, they're technically available.
they'll be available within 5 business days. So Wednesday, tomorrow's day 1, so by the end of the day next Tuesday, the minutes will be done in draft form, but they can look at them. They can look at the YouTube video, and it's gonna say everything you guys have said, so.
Right.
Usually that's how any case like that that's gonna go to court, or is gonna be contested, we do those minutes pretty close to what everybody says, for the most part. Or I do, I should say.
Great.
Not we, I do.
Well, you or someone's going to have to.
Motion to adjourn?
Second? We are adjourned.
Adjourn at 8:31.
Thanks, everyone.